These are the headlines we're following at this hour. President Yoon has arrived in New York for the UN General Assembly with a warning to North Korea and Russia over military cooperation, likely be included in his speech on Wednesday. Yoon is also set for dozens of bilateral meetings to promote Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. $6 billion of Iranian assets frozen in South Korea have been returned to Iran after a deal with the U.S. Washington and Tehran subsequently swapped prisoners. A U.S. court dismisses Westinghouse's lawsuit filed against Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation to block exports of nuclear reactors, claiming its intellectual property rights over the technology. What is the impact for the Korean utility company? Good afternoon. President Yoon has arrived in New York for the UN General Assembly with his speech set for Wednesday. But his 5-day trip already began with a series of bilateral meetings to promote Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. The president is aiming to meet around 40 world leaders between now and Friday. Our Kim Do-yeon is traveling with the president and files this report.
President Yoon is utilizing the UN General Assembly visit to New York to meet with as many leaders on the sidelines as possible to request support for Busan's bid to host the World Expo 2030. At 10 a.m. on Monday, he landed at John F. Kennedy Airport and went straight to meet his Sri Lankan counterpart for talks, which was followed by summits with San Marino, Burundi, the Czech Republic, Denmark, and Montenegro, among others. By just 7 p.m., he had met with 8 leaders. The meetings will have a repeated message requesting support at the BIE. But understanding the broader bilateral context is vital for Yoon during these meetings in order to use the opportunity to broaden South Korea's multilateral diplomacy. For instance, the meeting with San Marino marked the first talks between its leadership and a South Korean president. They discussed enhancing tourism cooperation. Similarly, in the meeting with the Czech Republic, they focused on energy and infrastructure, particularly hydrogen energy and trains, areas where the Czech Republic is seeking collaboration with South Korea. Yoon also discussed climate change with countries including Denmark, a long-standing ally since the establishment of the Green Growth Alliance in 2011. Additionally, several countries acknowledge South Korea's significant role in ensuring stability in the Asia-Pacific region through security cooperation. Fall goes to plan for his stay until Friday. He's set to meet with around 40 leaders. That's not to say sideline summits are the only items on the president's schedule. He'll also meet with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and will attend a reception hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden. Wednesday is a big day, as Yoon will be delivering his speech at the UN General Assembly. He also returns to NYU's Digital Vision Forum on Thursday, before wrapping things up here on Friday. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News, New York.
As President Yoon landed in New York, a former South Korean ambassador to the UN spoke to Arirang News, highlighting why the leaders' push for global peace, development, and digital principles matters for the world. He says Seoul must play a leading role in rebuilding multilateralism. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young reports from New York.
South Korea has a crucial role to play in a world that faces continuous threats and challenges that leave the most vulnerable people in society even further behind. That's according to South Korea's former ambassador to the United Nations, Okja, who also served as president of the UN Economic and Social Council. Ahead of President Yoon Suk-yeol's address to the General Assembly, all raised the urgency of advancing key 2030 agendas, including the Sustainable Development Goals to end extreme poverty and the Paris Climate Agreement on reducing carbon emissions. He says time is running out.
The implementation of the SDGs has been negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, as you know. For example, the global population below the poverty line, which had been going down since the Millennium Development Goals, started to grow again for the first time in 20 years.
Or underscored the humanitarian crisis in Myanmar as an example, having visited the Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh last month. which is the world's largest, with about 1 million refugees, half of whom are children under 18.
The number of refugees and displaced people in the world keeps growing, with more diverse factors causing their hardship, such as wars, climate crises, and natural disasters.
Or endorses Ho's growing commitment to official development assistance, which will see a 44% increase in next year's budget. He said the beneficiary-turned-donor country can now increase the quality as well as the quantity of its contributions. This includes President Yoon's push to set global standards on digital access, rights, usage and development.
Standardization will also help to enable many developing countries in the world to gain access to the global market and to position themselves on an equal footing with the developed economies. This, I hope, will in turn contribute to bridging the digital divide globally, which is an important target of the United Nations and other international bodies.
Okja Save the Children Korea, which has provided tablet PCs and online education to increase access to quality learning, as well as aid for children in conflict-ridden Myanmar and Ukraine. Despite the growing number of common challenges, Okja's global cooperation has also suffered setbacks due to reasons that include rising nationalism.
Countries like South Korea should be more active in promoting global cooperation, because as a middle power, we benefit more from a stable and rule-based world based on global governance provided by multilateral institutions. For example, when the war in Ukraine is over, I think there will be a serious debate on the big loopholes we have in the current peacekeeping mechanism. I hope South Korea can play a leading role in such a debate, not least because we will be a member of the Security Council for the next 2 years.
President Yoon on Wednesday will push for Ukraine's peace and reconstruction and outline his plan to address global gaps in development, climate and digital transformation in his vision to make Seoul a more responsible actor in the international community. 오수영, Arirang News, New York.
$6 billion of Iranian assets frozen in South Korea have been returned to Iran after a deal with the U.S. Washington and Tehran subsequently swapped prisoners. Choi Min-jung reports.
The United States and Iran have completed a rare prisoner swap deal after billions of U.S. dollars of Iranian funds frozen in South Korea were released back to Tehran. In a statement on Monday, U.S. President Joe Biden said 5 Americans who were imprisoned in Iran are finally coming home. These Americans had been detained in Iran for nearly a decade on a number of allegations, including espionage. Separately, Iran's state-run media reported that 5 Iranians held by the U.S. who had been charged with crimes are now free. 2 of the 5 have reportedly landed in Tehran. Citing sources, Reuters said the swap happened after both sides confirmed that around $6 billion of frozen Iranian assets were transferred from South Korea to Qatar, the mediator of the U.S.-Iran talks. Seoul's foreign ministry on Tuesday confirmed that the Iranian funds have been successfully transferred to Qatar. The money had been locked in South Korea due to sanctions imposed by the U.S. following its withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018. The frozen funds have become one of the main reasons behind South Korea and Iran's thorny relations, as Tehran has long been demanding that Seoul release the funds. That being said, the ministry also expressed hope to see developments in relations with Iran following the transfer. Meanwhile, Biden thanked South Korea and other countries involved for helping the detained Americans come home. The U.S. president said that he was grateful to the partner countries for their tireless efforts to achieve the goals, and thanked the governments of South Korea, Qatar, Oman, and Switzerland. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also thanked South Korea for its close coordination and partnership. Although the prisoner swap and release of Iranian funds may appear to be an encouraging development in Washington and Tehran's rocky relationship, tensions are expected to remain high, with Tehran's nuclear program still a sticking point. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
On the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with Chinese Vice President Han Zhang and discussed issues on North Korea, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the Taiwan Strait. In his opening remarks, Blinken said the world expects them to responsibly manage the relationship, adding that the U.S. is committed to doing just that. China's Han also noted the world needs a steady and sound relationship between the two countries and asked Washington to take more concrete action. In a statement after the meeting, the U.S. State Department explained the talks involved a candid and constructive discussion and said they agreed to maintain open lines of communication. Despite an overall decline in exports, South Korea's auto industry is maintaining its robust performance in August, with high demand for eco-friendly cars once again driving the trend. Our Park Gon-woo has more.
The value of auto exports last month reached an all-time high for any month of August. According to a report by the Industry Ministry on Tuesday, South Korea's automobile exports in August came to a total of $5.3 billion, a 29% jump year-on-year. South Korea has been seeing increases in the double digits every month since July 2022. Thanks to healthy outbound shipments, South Korea produced more than 300,000 vehicles in August for the first time in a decade, despite the fact that auto companies usually shut down factories during the month for about a week. An industry ministry official explained that the vehicle production supply chain only began returning to normal after the negative effect of COVID-19. Strong exports were mainly due to high demand for eco-friendly cars, including electric and hybrid vehicles, which made up almost 1/3 of the total auto exports. Eco-friendly cars saw a 47.8% on-year increase in terms of export value by reaching the $1.8 billion mark. Sales of environmentally friendly vehicles to the U.S. since the implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act increased 153% on-year. Also, the number of electric vehicles exported rose by over 61% compared to a year before. Domestic sales of eco-friendly vehicles also soared 11.9% on-year, with hybrid cars seeing a 53% increase. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
A U.S. court dismisses Westinghouse's lawsuit filed against Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power Corporation to block exports of nuclear reactors, claiming its intellectual property rights over the technology. Now, what is the impact for the Korean utility company? Our Yoon explains.
On Monday, the U.S. Federal District Court of Washington, D.C. dismissed Westinghouse's case filed against Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power over issues of intellectual property infringement. Westinghouse had filed complaints in a U.S. court in October last year against KHNP and its parent Korea Electric Power Corporation to block South Korea's exports of nuclear power reactors to Poland. The move came shortly after KHNP had inked a letter of intent with energy companies in Poland to build a nuclear power plant, which includes multiple 1.4 gigawatt capacity power units. Westinghouse argued that the Korean APR 1400 nuclear reactor model was based on its original design and technology, which requires agreement before any exports. Meanwhile, KHNP argued that while assistance was received in the early stages of development of the APR 1400, the core technology was domestically developed, making it free from U.S. export restrictions or any royalty payments. However, the Washington, D.C. Federal District Court dismissed the case over lack of standing to sue based on the Department of Energy's Rules and Regulations Part 810. The court stated that the authority to enforce the export restriction had been delegated exclusively to the U.S. Attorney General, and therefore a private entity that is not the U.S. government does not hold the legal authority to assert the rights. The core issue of intellectual property infringement has not been addressed, though, meaning this may not be the end to the dispute. Yoon, Arirang News.
Amid concerns over supply disruptions, global oil prices hit the highest level for this year on Monday. Over on the New York Stock Exchange, West Texas Intermediate futures for October hit $91.48 per barrel, its highest price in 2023. Meanwhile, in London, Brent crude oil futures for November delivery also hit a high for the year, closing at $94.43 per barrel. The rise in oil prices comes as positive economic data from China fueled expectations of increased demand for crude from the world's second largest economy. The latest data shows that China's industrial output and retail sales grew more than expected in August, signaling a stabilization of China's economy. Well, apples turn ripe and red when they're exposed to sunlight. While rising temperatures are delaying that coloration process, there are new varieties of apple that don't need to turn red to taste just as good. Chung Eun-ju has a story.
Apple growers are working to perfect apple coloration. They regularly tend to leaves and branches, rotate the fruits, and lay reflective film on the ground to ensure even sunlight exposure. For apples to turn red, the anthocyanin pigments in the fruit skin need to be activated by sunlight exposure. Recent prolonged high temperatures during the summer, however, have led to delayed coloration and less vivid colors, resulting in an increase of 3.3 hours in the time required for coloration management compared to a decade ago. In response, the Rural Development Administration has introduced apple varieties that require less coloration effort, the Green Summer King and Yellow Golden Ball apples. The Summer King variety is available in mid-July and features a slightly green shade with a hint of red when it's ready to harvest. The Golden Ball variety ripens in mid-August and has a yellow hue and excellent flavor.
Unlike other apples that require turning and using reflected films for coloration, this yellow apple just needs a bit of leaf removal.
The Summer King variety is harvested around the same time as the Japanese variety Sugaru, but is juicier and has a refreshing crunch. The Golden Ball variety, known for its rich and intense flavor, overcomes storage issues common in summer apples as its flesh is firm.
In the past, we had to wait until fall for good apples. I'm really looking forward to enjoying delicious apples this summer.
The RDA expects these two varieties to become representative early ripening apples.
Coloration defects arise due to global warming. To address this problem, we plan to focus on distributing yellow varieties, like Golden Ball, and green varieties that don't require coloration management in areas with high temperatures.
The RDA plans to further develop new apple varieties that can maintain high quality even during the hot summer and ensure consistent yields. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. At the United Nations General Assembly in New York, the global organization has adopted a political declaration that accelerates action to realize its sustainable development goals. Announced at a high-level forum on Monday, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called for the ending of hunger, switching to renewable energy, and spreading digitization and education. The SDGs include 17 goals meant to protect the planet and ensure peace and prosperity for all people. But despite the SDGs being adopted in 2015, progress has fallen short of expectations.
Yet today, only 15% of the targets are on track, and many are going in reverse. Instead of leaving no one behind, we risk leaving the SDGs behind. So, Excellencies, the SDGs need a global rescue plan.
It's hoped that Monday's declaration will speed up progress in each of the goals. In Peru, at least 24 people, including children, have been killed in a bus crash. Over 8 dozen others were injured. The bus was traveling from Ayacucho to Huancayo on Monday morning when it veered off a highway in the Huacoto region and plunged down a 200-meter deep ravine. Authorities say the bus had recently passed a safety inspection, and an investigation into the cause of the crash is underway. According to a mayor of a nearby town, the road where the bus crashed was damaged in a landslide last month and has not been repaired. In the United States, the search for a missing F-35 jet has come to an end, following the discovery of wreckage. The $80 million aircraft was found in a field north of Charleston, South Carolina on Monday local time. The find comes a day after its pilot ejected because of a mishap during a training session. The plane was left in autopilot mode, and the military lost track of it. Search efforts for the F-35B Lightning II also included a request by the military for civilians to call with any information about the missing plane. Meanwhile, a 2-day stand down for all aviation units has been declared to facilitate a discussion about safety measures and procedures. It will take place this week and apply to all units both inside and outside the US. And finally, in the United Kingdom, a new record has been set for the world's highest cheese pull. A 4-foot-wide nacho was dipped into a bowl of melted mozzarella cheese before being stretched 49 feet by a helicopter. The stunt took place over the weekend at Cheddar Gorge in Somerset and was verified by the World Talent Organization. The cheese pull was organized by Doritos Dippers to mark National Guacamole Day. It took more than a month of planning. The stunt comes as cheese pull clips have become a viral trend on short video sharing platforms, with some videos getting over 1 million views. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. We are already heading into the end of September with the Chuseok holiday starting next week, but we still need to turn the AC on in the afternoon. Well, Daegu soared to nearly 33 degrees Celsius yesterday, and it will be slightly lower today, but hovering way above seasonal norms across much of Korea again. In fact, many parts of the world are dealing with a September heat wave this year with record-breaking temperatures. Well, back in Korea, upper regions could see light rain passing by, but it won't be enough to need an umbrella, whereas down south is under dazzling sunshine with very high UV rays today. Afternoon highs are 2 to 3 degrees higher than seasonal norms, and Gwangju and Busan will be topping out at 29 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Nationwide rain is in the forecast for tomorrow. Rain will start from central regions tomorrow at dawn before gradually spreading to the rest of the country. Southern provinces and east of Gangwon-do will see rain into Thursday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We often call actors who are loved by the country a 국민 actor or actor of the nation, and Byun Hee-bong was one of them, who passed away on Monday at the age of 81 due to cancer. He's known for his decades-long partnership with the Oscar-winning director Bong Joon-ho, starring in 4 of his hit films, including The Host and Okja. With Okja, Byun went to the Cannes Festival, a moment he said seemed like opening a new chapter in his life, entering his late 70s, just when he thought it is all over. He said he gained strength and courage to look forward to what he will do next, and that he wants to act until the day he dies. With such an exceptional passion, we'll look back as we remember the late star. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.